My mother taught me from childhood not to get into a car with strangers. I was an obedient child, but who would have thought that even a friendly friend of the coach could be a rapist? I went to the gym for the first time when I was 17. I was dating a guy then. He was a jock, engaged in bodybuilding. And of course it was a kind of motivation for me, because I wanted to be better. Since I wasn't working, I chose a fairly cheap gym located near my school. We agreed to go there with a classmate. But in the end it turned out that it was enough for a month, and then I went alone. But I loved the gym. Therefore, it didn't matter to me whether to go with someone or alone. Quite a lot of representatives of the strong part of humanity went to that hall. But there were enough girls. After a while, I began to be mistaken for a coach, since I was really in good physical shape. And it so happened that a friend of my coach noticed me. Although at first no one noticed me. It was an adult male, about 35 years old. He had an athletic build, and frankly, very good. Although he wasn't my type. I don't remember how, but we started talking in between sets. He began to show signs of attention, and every workout he brought either fruit or chocolate. At first, I didn't attach any importance to this, and I didn't even think that he might like me. Because for me, dating a man who is 15 years older was wild. But I remembered one case for a long time. One evening, after training, I decided to go to the store for cottage cheese. I then tried to eat right. I didn't eat sweets, and in the evenings I ate only cottage cheese. And since the area in which I was studying was unfamiliar to me, a friend of the coach, let's call him Jack, offered to accompany me. I agreed, although I could walk on my own. At that moment, I already understood that he liked me, because it was hard not to notice the signs of attention on his part. At the store, Jack paid for me, although I didn't ask, and decided to accompany me. It was late, it was winter outside, and it was quite cold. After leaving the supermarket, we headed towards the bus stop, when he suddenly offered to give me a ride in his car. I don't know why, but I agreed. Although everyone is taught from childhood not to get into a car with strangers. But I didn't seem to have an instinct for self-preservation. At that time I had a boyfriend, he worked in the police. And I didn't even have thoughts about other men. It was a 10-minute drive to my house at most. And Jack offered to take a ride to the center. Apparently, he wanted to spend more time with me, but I refused his offer and asked him to take me home, as I had to prepare for lessons. I was in my senior year, and I had to keep track of my grades. And besides, I had a boyfriend. Jack agreed to drive me. However, almost at the entrance to the area where I lived, we turned off the route and drove to the exit from the city. I was scared because the phone was at 0 and it was getting dark. She asked me to take me home, but Andre had other plans. I tried not to panic, and almost calmed down. After all, what can a friend of the coach do to me? We know each other, and besides. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Sit back. I didn't understand why, and what he wanted from me. Get in the backseat, he repeated. I gave in, and moved. At the moment when I got out of the car, the thought slipped through my mind to escape, but there was an unfamiliar area around me, and there was not a soul nearby. I moved back, and Jack followed me. Sitting down next to him, he said, you know. I liked you as soon as I saw you. And all my thoughts are occupied only with you. I looked at him blankly. He reached out to kiss me, but I dodged, so he missed. I have a boyfriend, and he's a cop. Do you understand that there can be nothing between us? I don't like you, and besides, I'm good enough to be your niece. My words must have upset him. Or they got angry because the next thing he did was grab my hand and said I had nowhere to run. I was even more scared. I understood what he wanted to do. Before that, my thoughts were occupied with other things, and I sincerely hoped that he did not have such motives. I was wrong. He began to take off his jacket and hat. And he reached out to take off my down jacket. I slapped him, which made him even angrier. Either we have sex, or I'll have you. I'll kill you. My eyes were full of fear. Just don't be afraid. We're fast. And then I'll take you home, Jack said. At that moment, my gaze fell on the phone lying next to his leg. I succumbed to him, and began to undress myself, realizing that I could not escape. I took off my down jacket, hoodie, and stayed in one sports top and leggings. I didn't change after the gym. He put his hand on my waist and pulled me to him. I leaned forward listlessly. The man began to kiss me, gradually descending from the neck to the lower abdomen. Since there was not enough space in the car, it was completely inconvenient. He told me to lie down on the seat, and he himself lay down on top. Through my pants, I felt that he had a hard-on. For a long time without ceremony, he began to unbutton his pants, after which he pulled off my leggings. Due to the limited space, he bitterly entered me in half, and began to move quickly. I just lay there and waited for it to end, not understanding how I got into this situation. Apparently, approaching the end, he quickly sat down and told me to suck him off. I think my face showed all the disgust for him, because he hurried me. Faster, not that. You know what will happen. I involuntarily leaned forward. At that moment, I saw his phone, which was next to my head, and realized that this was my chance. Grabbing it, I jumped out of the car. By the time Jack recovered, I was already dialing Ted, my boyfriend's number. With tears in my voice, I tried to explain what had happened. "Where are you? Who are you with? I'm going to drop this bastard," Ted shouted. I barely explained my location to him when Jack had already overtaken me. He grabbed his phone and started shouting, "What have you done? I wanted to be nice, but you're forcing me." To which I already answered crying, "The police squad is on its way. My boyfriend will put you away." I saw the horror in the man's eyes. "Either you take me home and you will never appear in my life again, or you will end up behind bars." The man got really angry and started swearing obscenities. "Get in the car. Now." He could not stand it. It was obvious that he was nervous. I prayed for the police to arrive as soon as possible. We moved off and drove about a kilometer when a police car appeared ahead. But Ted wasn't in it. Jack was scared, but continued to drive, pressing the gas pedal. What was his relief when the police drove by? It wasn't far to my house, so he drove me to the nearest store. "Get out," he shouted. It was obvious that he was tense, there was fear in his eyes. I jumped out of the car and ran towards the house. His car disappeared around the bend. As I approached the house, I saw Ted rushing down the road at high speed. Flying out of the car, he shouted, "Where is this bastard? I'll drop it." I cried even more, leaning towards him. He hugged me and I explained what had happened. Ted was beside himself with anger. "How did you even think to get into his car? Why didn't you take the bus? Why didn't you run away?" I couldn't answer. I was ashamed of my stupidity, which turned out to be such a horror. He took me home and said that no matter what, he would find the rapist and put him away for a long time. The next day I didn't go to school. I was trying to recover. It must have been about a month since I showed up in the hall again. Jack wasn't there. Out of the corner of my ear, I heard a conversation between the coach and his friend. "Jack, in short, figure it out, he's gone to New York. He has a bride there will be a wedding soon." I was in shock. At the same time, I was sincerely sorry for the unfortunate woman whose husband this bastard should become. I decided to find out where he lives. I wanted to tell his future wife everything so that she wouldn't make a mistake. But no matter how hard I tried, my attempts were in vain. There was no information, except that Jack is now in New York and is preparing for the wedding. What was my surprise when I met him on the street, returning home from another workout. It was obvious he was waiting for me. When I saw the man, I stopped. I was afraid that the incident would happen again, and I already reached for the phone to call Ted. Jack noticed this, and shouted, "Stop," slowly approaching me. There were about 5 meters between us. He stopped. I realized that I had made a mistake. "I'm sorry, I didn't have to. I just want to apologize, and I want to tell you to forget about what happened. I have a fiancée, and soon we will have a baby. I'm getting ready to become a father, and I really want to marry her. I don't feel anything towards you. It was just an animal instinct, looking at your ass, that's all." I couldn't believe my ears. I felt that he was lying, and at the same time, there was remorse in his voice. He was waiting for an answer. While he was talking, I managed to go into correspondence with Ted and hold down the voice message icon, so that his speech should have been heard. Swallowing resentment, through tears and fear, I said, "I forgive you. Get out. Get out of my life and never come into it again." It was as if he had not expected such an answer, and was even surprised, continuing to stand still. I don't know how much time has passed, but apparently Ted was on duty nearby this time, and I heard the sound of a car approaching. I looked at Jack. Horror was written on his face. Ted jumped out of the car and ran up to the man with a jerk. He didn't even run away, he just stood rooted to the spot. The story ended with the fact that the man was imprisoned for his deeds. It turned out that I was not his first victim. And in New York, his fiancée was really waiting for him. Pity her. Now the child will be left without a father. But it's better that way than he will be raised by a rapist. Put a like. Subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new stories.